Hello again, my name is Dr. Bill Johnson. I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Exploring Our Schools. Today really is one of those more exciting days that I have an opportunity to spend with you talking about something which has really become an extraordinarily special series of events at Southside High School. It grew slowly over the years, but has now become kind of a signature event here at Southside. And it's all about student-directed plays. I'm very excited to jump right into the middle of this, and I have Pam Seidemann, who's the teacher, deeply involved in these plays, right? Actually, from the beginning.
Yes, helping the students.
Why don't we start with you, and then we'll jump into the students who are very, very actively involved with this as well. Julia Baxley,
yes.
All right? You are a senior now, right?
Yeah,
Oh
I'm one
God.
of the directors for the shows.
Oh my God, it goes so quickly, doesn't it? I know. All right, Isabel Logis, are you also a senior?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, all right, so we're going to get back to you in just a minute, but Pam, if you wouldn't mind just spending a few moments talking a little bit about the history of this and where it came from and how it's evolved into what it's become today.
Right. I started working here in 2001, so that's
Ancient history.
I must admit that right from the start. But it has grown and evolved. Even at that point, there had been a history of student-directed plays, but it's changed over the years. The impetus behind it, or the philosophy, is that we want to give the students an opportunity to really be empowered to work on their own as much as possible. Obviously, there's some in the background, whether that be Mr. Reed or myself, Mrs. Tanklow, guiding the students. We really wanted them to have an opportunity to be the leaders and take on all of the roles that go into producing shows. And so that comes from the IB theater class. They become the leaders. Sometimes they write the plays, sometimes they're the playwrights, sometimes they direct pre-existing plays, but they direct, they do the design, they do the producing, they do the tech, the lighting, the sets, the costumes, everything that goes into production, choreography, all the creative aspects and technical aspects are handled by the students, with a little bit of guidance from us, of course, to make sure that
So it goes well
nothing goes wrong.
beyond student-produced, student-written, this is student-directed.
It's student-directed, it's student-run,
Yeah.
everything. Really, the students are responsible for everything that happens that evening, even down to making tickets for ticket sales. So we really try to, empower them to run the show, and we sit happily in the audience and
It's the
just
second time you
watch.
use that word. You feel empowered?
Yeah, I mean, after I've been in almost all of the shows here, so it's something that I've been looking forward to for a while, to be able to sort of take it into our own hands and get to see what it's like to be Miss Eiderman or Miss Tanklow.
So what's your project? What is it? Is it something you wrote?
No, ours, we all went with pre-written shows this year. So mine is called the Greek Mythology Olympiaganza. It's like about Greek mythology. It's just like funny, they're 15 minutes long. I'm a director, so I work with another student in our class who is like the designer for our show. And, we host rehearsals after school, like at my house, and a lot of work goes into it, but it's
So what's directing
fun.
like?
It's a lot of work, I'm not going to lie. I've had some experience directing in theater class before. I usually plan out everything in advance, but when the time comes,
Now, what does a plan look like?
I usually just write in the scripts, like, what I'm kind of like seeing the actors doing at this part, or like what I want the stage pictures to look like at that moment. But I usually change a lot of my ideas when the time comes. I'll be like, oh wait, actually, can you do this instead? And just to see, I think it looks better sometimes.
Well, that's real life. I mean, that's actually the way in which direction takes place.
Absolutely.
I mean, a lot of it is intuitive.
Yeah.
I mean, you think there's a plan all the time, and there generally is. There has to be usually a
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah, I like to go in with something,
But
but
it's all variations on a theme.
yeah.
Right?
This year our theme is comedy, right? It's
Yeah.
we're sort of going off like a Saturday Night Live kind of theme for this.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Yeah.
How about your project?
My play is called The Actor's Nightmare. So basically, a character goes on and experiences the actor's nightmare where everyone
So
else.
is it?
Not for us.
Right.
But an actor goes on stage and he doesn't know any of his lines, but everyone else knows theirs. So it's funny.
And that's actually really is what The Actor's Nightmare is called. It's by a fairly
Yeah,
famous playwright,
Christopher
Durang,
Durang.
who wrote that play. And actually, I don't know if they know that this was done maybe in 2013 years ago, perhaps, somebody did this as a student-directed play, but theirs is going to be a completely different, and I'm sure, interpretation of it. But this is something we really have as actors. Perhaps even teachers and administrators have this dream too, where you realize you're about to go on stage, and you've been apparently rehearsing for months, but you know none of your lines. So it's a very common
I've heard that said
real-life
before,
nightmare.
director as interpreter.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that way? When did you see the other play, by the way? We have a record of it, right?
I didn't see the other one, but since I like design it, it's definitely I have to like draw inspiration from other things, but somehow make it my own. And I think a lot of it is like you have to work with what's on paper, but the thing about design is that you could take it so many other places that, and a lot of it is my own decision working alongside my director, but. I think I just like try my best to, because like as student director, I try to make it more simple because we only have 15 minutes. But I think like there's a lot like of room to create and to explore different things.
Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, and we have such a large cast that there's so many like opportunities or
really?
ways to go. Here, yeah, we have a lot
In
of
15,
characters.
how many do you have?
I think we have 20 people
Oh, my
in
goodness.
our cast, maybe 18. And there's a lot of room to go with that many people with, costume designs, and like since ours is Greek, we want to keep some traditional, but then also we're trying to make some like more modern, I guess. So there's a lot of, like Isabel said, there's a lot of room for interpretation.
Do you learn the play and the lines?
I don't try to, but by the time it's over, like I know all of them. Almost already I know all of them.
Now, do you feel like you're an interpreter also? I mean, when you know who the author is, and do you try to get at the intent of the author, or is it just something where you just, once you read the script, it says, I own this?
I feel like once I read the script, I mean, the author's intent is pretty clear in my play. There's no, like, hidden message. I think that's comes from, it's short, it's just about Greek mythology, but once I read it, I was like, it was like became mine. I was like, I know what I want to do with this. Well, mine and my designers, of course, because we're working on it together, but you sort of, like, take it on and, like, make the play, like, part of yourself, I guess.
It really is true. I mean, it is an expression of who you are, I think. Well, you use the word designers. What exactly do you mean by designers? I mean, I'm
well-
familiar with producers and directors and actors. What do you mean by designers?
Well, usually in like a bigger production like the musical, we'll have someone specific for like costume design and set design and lighting design. It's like 3 different people for those types of jobs. But for this, like my role as a designer, I take on all 3. So I initially have like more like costume ideas and visions, and some things I've like sewn together and like made myself, or I've like gone out and like used one of my T-shirts or something. And then lighting you have to plan out, sound as well you have to do, and set. Some things can be used from the basement, but I try to not do that because I really want to like create this from scratch. So it's every element of design that goes into the play. Just since it's a smaller frame of time, it's a little bit easier.
Now, do you
to
have
handle.
actually a budget? Do they each have? I mean,
We have a small budget.
well, to put together a set is not so easy. You have to be really creative if you have limited resources.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, there's, they eat, maybe each play is getting about $100 that they make back in their ticket sales, really. So it's a loan, in a way. They make well over that, I think, back. And, so this year there's 6 15-minute plays is the evening. And we do want them to have a sense of like how to work with the budget. That's one of the jobs. The student producer, who is the sort of the Mr. Reed of this, is Stephanie Rhodes, and she has to manage that as well, making sure all the plays go off without a hitch, and that all 6 are.
Well, that's interesting. You have a single producer for all.
We do have a single producer.
So how many plays are you doing?
Yeah, there are 6 this year. Every year it's
Okay.
a little bit different, and the length of the play is determined by how many we have. But
Right, so you try to keep it to an hour and a half to 2 hours.
exactly,
Right.
the evening, the whole evening. So as much as an audience can sit through.
No, but
Yeah.
you've really attracted a tremendous number of people. This has become a really popular event. Does that make you nervous?
Not really, I feel like. Like, in my cast alone, like, there are a bunch of people who have never even been on stage before, which I love. I think that's such a great thing that this is, like, people's first opportunity to, like, act, and they're taking it. And that's actually inspired some people to, like, audition for the musical just because of the student-directed rehearsals that we've had so far. But I like that we're going to be, like, doing this in front of so many people. So many people are going to be like coming to see what we worked so hard on. Like,
Yeah.
of course we feel that way for the musical too, but this one it's like we're in charge, you know, it's like more of like our creation.
And when you're doing it, do you feel the audience? I mean, plays are not, they're public events. So you're playing to an audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Many of whom are students, in this case.
Yeah, we talk about that in theater a lot. You have to think about your audience and what your audience is going to be like feeling in the moments and stuff. So we do try to cater to that. We like, especially because it's going to be a lot of students. So we try to work with what we think they would like.
Yeah. And when you talk about design, a lot of that design actually contributes to whether or not you connect with the audience or not, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's hard because you might have this idea, but then it's like, oh, the audience might like not be able to see an actor because of that, or it might not read to the audience. So a lot of times you have to take into consideration, and it's the great thing about having a director and a designer that if my partner, who's the director, like blocks something and I'm like, ooh, that doesn't really make any sense, like maybe do this, whatever, and I'm not taking over her job, it's just like an audience perspective, and she might say to one of my designs, like, I don't really think that works either, so it's nice to have like the balance of like giving each other advice.
Right. Now, how many kids do you have on stage?
My cast only has 6 people in it.
Oh, my
for our
goodness.
show. Mm-hmm.
So I know you mentioned sound before.
Mm-hmm.
With 20 and 6, you have to know who's speaking. I mean, you know, one of the
Yeah.
distractions audience have is that, who just said that,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, well, we never have all 18 people on stage at the same time. It's sort of like, I guess, divided up into like smaller scenes. So we try to keep it clear because we have 2 narrators who do most of the speaking. So we have them in like positions where they're towards, you know, downstage. So hopefully the audience will be able to see who's speaking. And of course, projection. We work on that with our cast members a lot because we want them to be heard and stuff.
yeah. Now, in both cases, this could be a full-time job. So where do you find time? I mean, you're seniors, getting ready to graduate, going off to college. At the same time, look at what you're dedicating your time to do.
Yeah.
Feel. I mean, where do you get the time?
I know. Well, this is
They don't
something
sleep.
that, yeah, a lot of us have been looking forward to since, you know, freshman year or even like middle school. You know, we've like known we wanted to have our student directed and stuff. So since I've been like waiting for it for so long, it's just something that I am like really willing to spend a lot of time on. And then, you know, since we create the rehearsal schedule, we can work it around our own schedules. Like I'll be like, oh, I need to do, you know, an essay or something. So we'll have rehearsal either like earlier in the day, so I'll have more time to do it later, which I guess is a good thing that we can make our own.
So you really have to be pretty well organized in order to
Yeah.
pull this off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever get involved in that?
Well, I try to keep them, because I have them in class, I try to make sure that they are keeping up with their academics. I mean, because I'm aware, right, so we spend some time in class also, you know, talking about student directed when we need to. And Mrs. Tanklow and I are going to be previewing the plays next week. We feel like going into the holiday, we want it to be in good shape, because over the holiday they're gonna do some technical work on the show. So I'm gonna be watching that. We're gonna be previewing the shows next week, and we give the directors some notes that they can either take or reject our suggestions. So we're sort of you know, we want to be there to help and give advice, but in the end, it's their decision to feel, you know, to take or to heed the advice or to say, you know, I want to do this differently. So that's important. And I just want to point out that apart from the directors and the designers and the actors, there are just dozens of people working on behind the scenes as well. How big is the crew? There's for all 6 shows, there's got to be.
So it goes well beyond your class.
It does
Yeah.
go beyond my class. And there's the play prod class, but how many crew members would you think there are
Well,
with makeup and running crew and stage managers?
Yeah.
There's definitely over about 30, I would say,
Wow.
just all together between each shows. Because I have
Just
2.
one crew, yeah.
Yeah, I've just in our specific show we have 2 costume people and 1 props person, but that's for every show, and they might have more. And then there's stage managers, assistant stage managers for each show, so minus 3. So on top of like the 6 people on stage, we have so many people like working backstage, and there's running crew as well. Like there's so many. They seem little, but they're honestly like such a huge part of the show that like we need for it to like totally come together.
Once you're on stage, it's the detail that counts. The little things that people notice that can be very distracting. So you've got to keep track of all of this. That's extraordinary. So I guess from an instructional point of view, really, the wonderful thing is that they get a chance to see the entire
Right.
production from
Right.
beginning to end.
Yeah, and it is important to me that it's the IB theater class that does this, because they are sort of being trained in little ways from the time that they're freshmen. They do design projects. They might be doing.
That's
they
what
do-
Julia was just saying. I mean, this has
Yeah.
been in the back of her mind
Yeah.
for now 4 years, I
Yeah.
guess, right? Yeah.
Right, so it's not just we're throwing this like, okay, kids, you know,
Uh-huh.
direct plays out of nowhere, but and I feel really confident. I have to say that this group, that's why I think we can take a step back and let them run the show, because we feel like they really are prepared and knowledgeable, and so we can be a little more relaxed. It's nice to not be directing, you know, for me, and just to watch them shine. Really.
Well, you know what it feels like. I mean, the pressure that's on you many times is easily transferred, I
Yeah.
guess, to them. But
Yeah, and you'll feel it the night of the show. If you speak to the directors, they're, you know, on the night
Yeah.
in January, they're really so much more nervous than when you're acting, right? It's more nerve-wracking to, even
Yeah.
though you're not the ones on stage. It's your baby up there, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
we only got a couple of minutes. But you know, there are two things that really strike me: is the incredible team effort that's involved in putting this together, and yet, so there's a lot of leadership involved in this.
Yes,
Yeah.
Do you feel that?
definitely. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of times where we'll be sitting at rehearsal, and you know, I'll be like, okay, like run the scene and stuff, and then they'll stop, and I'll realize they're all like looking at me for the next cue, and I'm like, oh, that's my job now. Like I have to tell you what to do, you know, because we really, except for in class with our friends, have never been like the ones in charge of everything. So, I mean, I love it. I love doing this, so I think it's a great experience.
Not everybody is going to do exactly what you want them to do, but you've got to convince them to do it.
Yeah.
Not so easy, is it?
No, I always try to think in my head, like when I'm working on stuff, like theater is like never going to be perfect, and I think understanding that, especially for this process, like you will like try the absolute hardest you can, but I think knowing that things are going to change and it's going to be different is really important, especially in this process, because like, you know, we don't have as much time as we do for the fall drama and the musical to work on it. So I think a lot of it is just staying on task and being organized, and I think just like putting in the most effort you can is like the best thing you can
Any
do.
last words? We're right down to the last 30 seconds.
Oh,
Yeah, come
to
see
it.
Student
Well,
Directed.
one of the things we didn't touch on was, when does this take place? I know it's usually the first week in January.
Friday and
So do we
Saturday
have the
night.
dates?
Is it the
It's
the
January
5th
5th and
and
6th.
5th and 6th. all right?
7:30 p.m. Yeah,
Right
Friday
here at
and
Southside
Saturday.
High School.
Right
Yeah.
here in the Southside High School auditorium.
Okay,
Yep.
good. Would you encourage others to do it?
Of course.
Definitely. Yeah.
Every little piece, well, you said that very quickly, right, that was nice.
Yeah.
No hesitation.
Uh-huh.
No.
Yeah, it's very different from doing the musical or the drama, because, you know, if you're afraid to be on stage, it's just the other, like your peers are the ones who are with you through all the rehearsals. You only have to audition in front of, you know, other high school students. So it's a very good way to introduce yourself to acting if you've never done it before.
You agree?
Definitely. I think that this is like a great opportunity for anyone to get involved, because like if they love design, if they love acting, they never done something before. It was my first show at the high school. The first show I was in was student directed, so it has a special place in my heart.
That's a great way to end. Thank you so much. It has really become a special place in the heart of Southside High School. It's extraordinary what this has become, so thank you both very much. Pam, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us today, and hope to see you on January 5th and January 6th. So, thanks again. All right, this was great. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.